Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2011 comedy Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I want to give a special shout out to Brock for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below, and I will try to get to it as soon as I possibly can. Now, Bucky Larson, Born to be the Star, is a comedy that has a rather infamous reputation. It's a film that was critically panned upon its release, and it's a movie that was an absolute bomb in the box office. And to this day, it has a really poor critical reputation. I mean, the film at one point had a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now it has a 3%, which still makes it one of the lowest rated comedies on that site. And I went into this film with really low expectations as a result. And I gotta be honest, folks, I didn't hate this film. Now, that doesn't mean that I liked it, because at the end of the day, I still thought it was a pretty bad comedy. I thought it was a below average movie overall, but I didn't hate the movie. I didn't find it to be astonishingly awful like other critics have found it to be. I actually thought it was rather tolerable, at least for a one-time watch. I don't think this would be tolerable for more than one watch, at least for me, because whatever I got out of it the first time, I'm not going to get the same out of it the second time. But there were things about it that I thought were actually good, namely some of the performances and some bits of humor, but not a lot of it. This is a comedy where the comedy is definitely weak, and there's not a really good success ratio when it comes to the jokes or the gags or anything regarding to comedy. It's also a film that's pretty predictable when it comes to its story. Excuse me, just got a little bit of indigestion there thinking about some of the film's really, really pathetic and piss poor elements. Mainly just thinking about Bucky Larson. Bucky Larson, the character, just makes me want to burp or makes me want to throw up, because I just find that character to be absolutely putrid and pathetic on numerous levels. So, the film, though, overall, I've seen worse. I've seen films that have made me extremely uncomfortable while watching, or films that have made me want to just pull my hair out of my head and out of my ass. This isn't one of those movies for me. Like, it was one of those films where, like, that sucked. That wasn't that great. But I've seen worse. It didn't even piss me off as much as other films have, because I was just like, that was not a good comedy. But at least I got to see Christina Ricci. At least I got to see Don Johnson. That kind of thing. But the film is directed by Tom Brady. And I'm not going to say its direction is terrific. It's not a tremendous feat of filmmaking, but it's serviceable. It's decent. He handles his shots well enough. He has a consistent tone. There's not a lot of moments where it's off kilter in that regard or off the mark. It tries to be witty when it comes to the energy of the direction, and usually it fails. But there are some moments where it almost gets halfway there. It's a film that still, despite the fact that it's not anything above average, it still is energetic enough. It's not that flat. It's not that lifeless. It's your average kind of run-of-the-mill direction that you get with this kind of low-budget sex comedy from this era, from the 2010s. Like, it's your average kind of effort when it comes to this kind of movie. I don't think it's particularly terrible. I don't think it's particularly noteworthy, but at the same time, I don't think that it's something that is great either. It's just average. It's average direction for a below average movie. The screenplay by Adam Sandler, Alan Covert, and Nick Swardson, that is where the film really goes limp, and fails to rise to the occasion, because this script is pretty bad. I mean, from the very beginning, you have a really awful joke about some guy who wakes up in the morning. I think he's a farmer, and he puts peanut butter on his dick, and a goat sucks him off, and that's the joke. Good morning, he's got a smile on his face while a goat's sucking his dick. Ha ha ha. For some reason, characters are just randomly mean to Bucky or to other people. And that just comes across as mean-spirited and not funny. I don't know why they thought having Curtis Armstrong, Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, play a just despicable, shitty boss who is just mean to Bucky and then starts assaulting himself. It was a good idea. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea at all. What a waste of Curtis Armstrong. Shows up, he's an asshole boss. He starts assaulting himself with I think a stapler, or something along those lines, or the scanner for the checkout, and he gets Bucky fired. And this is a movie that has really long extended scenes that just drag a joke out to the point where it just fucking dies a despicable death. I mean, it's torturous. If there's any scene in this film that was extremely excruciating for me to sit through, it's the scene where Bucky is with his friends and they're watching a porno and his friends are teaching him how to masturbate. And they're coming up with all these different euphemisms and all these different ways to describe jacking off. Pulling your pud, blah, 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 choking the chicken. And they just beat that gag into the fucking ground to the point where it went to the center of the fucking earth. I just hated that scene. And I hate scenes like that in general in comedy. Less is more when it comes to that kind of comedy. Do not throw every single fucking description of whacking off into one scene. That doesn't make it funnier. That makes it less funny each time that you describe whacking off, but just in a different way. And I don't know about you, but if you saw a porn with your friends and your parents showed up on the porn, I think that would be scary. I think it would be terrifying. Not like, oh, cool, that's my folks. Like, I guess that's the point. That's the point of the film, is that Bucky is just so inept and socially awkward and doesn't know how the world works that he just sees his parents in a porn and he thinks it's cool. But that's a joke that's very one note and a joke that's really not that funny. So he sees his parents. He doesn't get freaked out at the fact that he was trying to jerk off to his parents in a porno. Instead, he sees it as a sign that he's going to be a star. He's going to be a porn star. So he leaves his small town home in, I think it was Idaho or some shit, and then he goes to California, he goes to Hollywood to try to be a porn star. And he's so naive and doesn't know what the fuck things are in terms of the industry. So he just tries to go to a porn store and ask the clerk if he can star in a porno. Then he goes to a audition, which he thinks is for a porn audition, but it's really for a mac and cheese commercial. So he awkwardly takes his clothes off and jacks off. And that's supposed to be hilarious. He then somehow, due to jacking off in front of this commercial director, manages to catch his eye, and the guy happens to be a guy who directed porn previously, so he invites him to a porn party, and that's where he meets this porn star named Dick Shadow, who tricks him into thinking that he can be the next big thing, but really he's just there to humiliate him because of his small penis. That's what leads Bucky to meet Miles Deep, this disgraced porno director played by Don Johnson, and they form a bit of a bond, but Don Johnson doesn't think that he's really fit for the porn industry because of his small penis and his lack of sex appeal, and he's right. But somehow he lucks into a gold mine because Bucky is so ugly and so much of a loser, and his dick is so small that it makes other inadequate men or feel better about themselves, or it makes their partners feel like their husband's inadequacies are nothing compared to Bucky's. So it just starts a crazy revolution of sex where people are just like banging each other way more and way more often, and they find each other more attractive because Bucky is such a buck-toothed, pathetic loser with a small penis. I don't get why they thought that that was the way to go. And in between all of this with the story, you have a love story that's going on between Kathy, this waitress at a dead end job, played by Christina Ricci, who starts quickly forming a bond with Bucky. And by the end of the film, there's a conflict where they break up, but then they get back together again, and they live happily ever after. You know, that typical sort of thing. There's not much of a conflict. It's a script that really struggles in a lot of ways. Not just with a comedy. I mean, I'm sorry, Bucky screaming like a howler monkey and coming is not what I call hilarious, just wonderful comedic writing. And it's a gag that it's just one note. There's just so many of these one note jokes in this script that just don't go anywhere. I will say this: this is a one note gag, but it made me crack up because of Kevin Nealon. Kevin Nealon plays this roommate of Bucky's who's just an aggressive random douchebag who's like yelling at him, calling him a piece of shit, you know, getting upset at him for eating his grapes. Like, did you eat my fucking grapes? Or telling him that he can't use the milk. Did you buy the milk? Did you buy this milk? No. Then don't drink it, you asshole. You know, stuff like that. And leads to a gag where Bucky buys a ton of milk and puts it in the fridge as like a favor to his roommate, but his roommate sees it as a personal affront. So he was like, "Where am I gonna put my grapes now, you insensitive bastard?" You know, stuff like that, where you're like, that's just fucking stupid. But it cracked me up because of Kevin Nealon's line delivery. Maybe it's a comedy moment that's not really funny because of the writing, but it's funny because of the performer. And I also cracked up at the way that Don Johnson would just shit on, I think, like I think it was his son that was working with him on the porn films, or someone that was in his family. I don't remember if it was his son or not, but he would just constantly bust his balls, and the way that Don Johnson said the lines uh, definitely made me chuckle. But there's just a lot of stuff that's just lame. And like there's this whole scene where Christina Ricci and Nick Swardson, they are trying to make love, and Christina Ricci's character Kathy creates a condom for Bucky that's the tip of a straw. You get it? Because his dick is so tiny. It's like, oh, whatever. There's like a porn award ceremony, and the gag is that Bucky wins every award, which is a gag that got old really quick. And you have this character in Dick Shadow who could be a really good nemesis for Bucky, and at times is, but he doesn't have a lot of screen time, and they devote more running time instead to this whole thing where Bucky's mentor and Miles Deep betrays him, and then you have the redemption arc for his character, and I'm like, you didn't need that. Like, it makes more sense that Dick Shadow would be the guy who would tell Kathy that Bucky wants to be a star, and uh, he wants to actually fuck the women, and I think it would be best for you to leave, that kind of thing. Like, that makes more sense. But instead they do it with Miles Deep's character, which I don't think really worked that well. Also, I just thought Dick Shadow was such a solid nemesis, a solid villain, that he just should have had more screen time. I think that would have definitely helped the film if he was a more consistent threat throughout the script. But at the end of the day, there's not much that you can do to save this film. Even if you improved a lot of these elements, even if you really emphasize the satirical elements of the script, like if you focus more on satirizing the porn industry than gross out humor, even if you focused on that more, you would still have a bad film and a bad script, because it all comes down to Bucky himself. Bucky as a character is absolutely awful. This is a horrible character who's not likable, who's annoying, and just all kinds of irritating. And it's not a character that comes across as endearing as the writers think either. This is a character who's just dumb, who has buck teeth, who has a really annoying accent, and this character is the focus of the movie. There's nothing that you can do with this script other than to change things around and make this character less of a caricature, make this character feel more like an actual human being. Then you might have something. I think having him be a small dick loser was a little too much. I think they should have had one of those things where he's a grower, not a shower, and like he's like the biggest grower of them all. Like, that's something that writes itself, and that would lead to Dick Shadow being even more jealous and have maybe him trying to do stuff to make his dick even bigger, to disastrous results or something. Have like a penis pump accident or something by the end of the movie. There's stuff that you could do with this concept that could lead to something that could be clever or funny. But this film doesn't really do a lot with the concept that's that clever, let alone funny. Now, the cast is surprisingly decent at points. Not with the lead. Nick Swardson is absolutely pathetic. Like, this is a really lackluster lead. Nick Swardson is not the guy who can carry a film. He doesn't have enough charisma, doesn't have enough inherent talent. His line delivery is average at best when it comes to the comedy. He doesn't have a great deadpan. The decision to make this character insufferably irritating with the buck teeth and the bad Midwestern accent was just a really bad call by Nick Swardson. And I don't care what Nick Swardson says. Like, Nick Swardson comes across like a bitter asshole when it comes to this film's negative reviews and its negative reception. Like, he's like, I knew critics were going to bury us because of the acting, how it was written and directed. None of those reviewers were psyched to see Bucky Larson and laugh. Nick, I wanted to laugh. I went into this with extremely low expectations, and I laughed a few times, but I wanted to laugh when it comes to this film. But I didn't laugh very many times. And a big reason for that is because of you. Because you suck so much. But okay, they go into the film with the mentality of fuck these guys making another movie. They go into there to kind of headhunt. It makes me laugh because it's just so embarrassing and makes them look like such morons. Dude, like, you acted like a total moron in this movie. And you want to talk about embarrassing? This is one of the most embarrassing performances that any fucking actor can do in any movie. So, Nick Swardson, you're out of touch, and I think you might be out of your fucking mind because you thought that this was going to be some kind of success. There's no way in hell that this is going to be a success. This wouldn't even been a successful sketch comedy character on your own show. So yeah, awful. Absolutely just atrocious performance by Nick Swardson. Christina Ricci, on the other hand, as Kathy, I thought she did a really good job. The film, in a lot of ways, was tolerable when it comes to one watch because of Christina Ricci. Because I liked her character, I liked the performance. She really tried the best that she possibly could to deliver a good performance, and I think she did. She was a bright spot when it comes to this relative shit stain of a comedy. The more I think about this film, the more it is a rant, because I didn't like a lot about this movie. I hated Nick Swardson. I hated his character. He was annoying with his stupid buck teeth and his dumb accent, and I didn't find it to be that funny overall. The plot was pretty bare, and it didn't have a lot of surprises. So yeah, the more I think about it, yeah, it is a rant. And it's also a rant because I just feel bad for Christina Ricci, because she deserved better. She deserved better when it comes to this performance. This performance should have been in like a legitimate rom-com, and one that actually has good writing and actually has more of a point to it. At least a direction to go that's actually positive in any capacity. Don Johnson, I also thought he did a nice job as Miles Deep. It was a good performance by Don Johnson. It's another thing where I wish he was in a better movie. Stephen Dorff, another actor who was very game and delivered a solid performance as Dick Shadow. The way that he described how no one... no one gets in my dick shade, that kind of thing. Like, that was something that's really stupid, but the way that he said that line, it was actually funny because he bought into it. And it was fun to see Stephen Dorff play a character like that as well, instead of these very serious kind of roles he was known for. It was fun to see him play against type, and I think he really nailed it. Like, he reminded me a lot of, like, what's his name? I think it's Bret Michaels. Like, he reminded me a lot of like Bret Michaels from Poison, or Vince Neil from Motley Crue. Like, he had that kind of hair metal lead singer vibe, and it worked. Kevin Nealon as Gary. I liked Kevin Nealon's performance in this. He was a gigantic asshole, but the way that Kevin Nealon said those lines cracked me up. And it was fun to see other actors like Edward Herrmann again as Bucky's father, as well as Miriam Flynn as Debbie, who people might recognize as Cousin Eddie's wife in National Lampoon's Vacation. Pauly Shore is also in this as himself. He presents some awards to Bucky at the Porn Star Awards ceremony. But yeah, the cast, it's not amazing, but there are some good performances by some of these cast members. It's just a shame that they weren't in a good movie. Now, a cinematography by Michael Barrett, nothing special, nothing really remotely intriguing, nothing really to write home about. It's like one of those things where, like, why should I even bother mentioning it? Like, there's nothing really that impressive or intriguing about the cinematography. The editing by Jason Gorson is eh. The music by Waddy Watchell, I don't even remember the score. It was that generic and that forgettable. And the music that they used, like, you had stuff like Journey and some of the other typical sort of songs that you would use for films like this. But it was like a score. It was like even the song choices were kind of lame. Just been there, done that. It has a runtime of like 97 minutes. And I will say this, for the first hour it goes by decently, because like I said, I'm at least invested in some of the characters. I wish that they were in a better movie, but I'm still somewhat invested in them. Not Bucky, but a lot of his supporting cast, yeah, sure. But then, like, after an hour in, it seems like it's over. It's already had its cum shot, its final cum shot, and then it just keeps trying to go. afterwards, and it just starts coming dust, and it's just dry, and it's one of those things where it starts to chafe, and you're like, it's already over, it's petering out. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Bucky Larson, Born to Be a Star, except I definitely would not recommend this film to anyone unless you want to see a bad comedy, or unless you want to see, unless you're a diehard Christina Ricci or Don Johnson fan and you have to see everything that they're in. But if that's not the case, definitely skip this one. There's not a lot of humor. There's not a lot of good elements to this. Like I said, there's potential, but it doesn't rise to the occasion. And the character of Bucky Larson is just so insufferable and so idiotic and so just absolutely unfunny that there's just no way to save this film. It might as well be a cinematic STD. But anyway, I don't know what else to say about it except thanks for watching my rant and my review of Bucky Larson, Born to Be a Star. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.